Welcome to the Tree of Truth podcast with Lidstone and Lambeau. In this podcast, we focus on what we call optimistic corruption theory. Optimistic corruption theory is the opposite or the antithesis of conspiracy theory. The term conspiracy theory is a misnomer and a term used by the willfully ignorant to belittle those of us in honest search of truth. We are not conspiracy theorists. We have zero concerns about the conspiracies on this planet. We only care about corruption and its diabolical effect on human life. Today, we welcome back our guest from last week, Amy the Desert Brat. Amy has spent decades of her life searching for proven truth in the minefield of government-sanctioned Orwellian corruption. Today, we're going to examine what's called bloodlines. In doing so, we're going to explore the absolute absurdity behind this concept, where certain human beings are born into entitled privilege, that these people are born into the entitlement of power by birthright. Turns out most of these entitled human beings are also born into massive corruption. So stay tuned. Hey, my pen name is Matt Lambeau, and I'm a human consciousness researcher and author, and I shall represent the Western Hemisphere. With me is the lovable Lucinda Lidstone. She's a trained psychotherapist practicing for over 20 years, and she has her own very successful podcast called Talking Tea Leaves, which is featured on the growing YouTube alternative One VSP. That's Talking Tea Leaves, found on the platform One VSP. Lucinda will represent the Eastern Hemisphere. Together, we are your East-West connection in hopes of someday uniting the world around common sense truth, or what we call our Tree of Truth. You can find this podcast and everything else about Lidstone and Lambeau at treeoftruth.org. That's treeoftruth.org. With no further ado, let's welcome the lovable Lucinda Lidstone. Well, hello, Lucinda. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, my darling?
Real good. Good to see you again. So quickly, what's the latest, greatest in your hemisphere?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to think about what's the latest, greatest, isn't it, with everything that's going on? But I had a very random text from my son this week, and he was saying, he was saying how proud of me he was about sort of my clinic and the things I do with you and the things I write and that. And he was just talking about what he thinks is my contribution to the world. And it was quite hard for me to sort of receive that. But how lovely is that? But what was even better was I thought to myself, yeah, and you're going to go further than I have. And that's great, isn't it? It's the baton that we all will be passing on to our children.
Absolutely.
And what they're going to, because I get caught up in this idea that it's only kind of our generation that are the truth seekers, but there are many young people that are truth seekers, and all of our families, Amy's, yours, and mine, they're the next generation of truth seekers, aren't they? And so, I felt proud of that. So that was the latest and greatest for me this week.
I love it. Well, I share your son's sentiments. Absolutely. I think you are your pursuit of the truth and the studying and things that you've done over the years, all the human beings that you've spoke with and the data that you've collected. Yeah, you're an invaluable asset to this mission. All right. Well, it's wonderful to see you. Let's bring Amy in. Amy, what's the latest, greatest in your world?
Well, it's kind of similar to Lucinda, because my family's kind of been the same way with me this week. It's a little different to accept those things. But and then working with you, Matt, on trying to get this YouTube live and whatnot, that's been fun. So looking forward to all of it, and hopefully that the message is going to get out there further and further. But you're right, Lucinda, a lot of young people. I had a shirt on yesterday that I thought would trigger people. Nope, it did the exact opposite. They all agreed with my shirt.
What was the shirt? What was the message?
Well, I don't know if I can exactly say it on here.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay, well, it says, I don't need sex. My government bleeps me every day. But it actually said the word.
God, yeah.
And I wore it purposely to be a trigger, but it was the opposite effect, which I thought was great. Like, that's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Now, before we launch into Bloodlines, I want to talk a little bit because Amy and I were working on the new tagline, which is optimistic corruption theory. Okay.
Yeah.
And I really like it because, again, these things that we're discussing are pretty dark. I mean, when you dig into the bloodlines, it's going to get real dark. But our goal is always to rise above it into the light and to witness the corruption, from a place of joy that says, listen, it's all moved. And this is where Amy's contribution is invaluable because I was quite the defeatist, but she's certainly optimistic and has a promising view of the way things are unfolding. Okay, so anyways, it's kind of cool. Tree of Truth, optimistic corruption theory. Okay. Now with that, Lucinda, do you want to get us rolling here with our topic?
Yes, indeed. So we're going to talk about, because in our freedom world, in our truth seeker world, we're often referring to they as they, or the 1%, or those in control, and we don't name them because we don't know who they are, because they're shadowy figures. And we talk about the Rothschilds, etc. But so this podcast is going to be trying to name and shame these families. And I would just say what my references are. So there's Fritz Springmeier, who wrote a book about, he entitled it The Illuminati, and spoke about the bloodlines there. But the most recent person I've been listening to is a young woman who comes from Romania. She's a researcher, and her name is Laura Marion. And she referenced Fritz Springmeier, but she said that he tends to focus on these kind of satanic bloodlines, but she believes that her research has led her to what she's calling papal bloodlines, and she believes that they are at the top of the pyramid. And all the names that we know of, like the Rothschilds, etc., they are really the agents of the people at the top, and that you never see them, you never get to hear about them. And her overarching theory is, she says that, over history, empires have risen and fallen, like the Roman Empire. And it doesn't matter what empire is rising or falling, because these people are always right, or their lineage rather is right at the back, and they remain hidden. And when you kind of explore this stuff, you can get really disheartened, because it just seems so huge, and they seem so powerful and so out of reach. But why do they need to remain hidden? And she was saying that the way to tackle them is to bring them out into the daylight and point out who these people are, because there must be a reason that they want to remain hidden. And you said in your intro there, Matt, these human beings, as wacky as it may sound, I'm not even sure that they are entirely human. I'm certainly not sure that they're human beings as you and I might know them to be. Are they possessed? Are they aliens? Are they different kinds of beings altogether? Who knows? So that's really what we're going to be delving into.
Amy?
Well, I was going to say we're going to scratch the surface, sort of, because this is such a
Huge,
topic, and it goes back centuries and centuries. I mean, I can kind of go back to the 2nd century, with the whole thing in the monarchy. You're familiar with that, and that's being the oldest political system, way before Democratic and Republican, or Republic, if you will. So, and at that time, I believe that they were kind of referred to as blue bloods. Are you familiar with that, Lucinda?
No.
Okay, so the blue bloods, that's basically, it was a royal decree that these people put onto themselves. And they would go into different countries. Not any of them were royal to start with, not any of them, but some of them had more money than others. So, and with money, they would buy property. The more property they had, they became, bigger and bigger. And so now they became royals, lords, they self-proclaimed lords. This and that. One became a king way back. And from there, it just kind of went further and further out in controlling different countries. Like Queen Elizabeth, she was basically not in control, but she ruled over several countries. She's just one. So this is a vast subject. So I don't know exactly which direction you want to go, but I'm willing to go down whichever rabbit hole you want, including the inbreeding that they
Yes.
did, because the pure blood, because can't mix that with us commoners. But so let's go there, wherever you want to go. I can throw out some names and explain the triangle a little bit, as far as the 3 levels of the hierarchy and the 3 levels of the anarchy, because it's really, the pyramid is really 2 levels, but each one has 3 levels, and each one has different councils that direct who's going to go where, who's going to get popular, who's going to be in the general public, who's going to whatever. So Lucinda, you take it.
Okay, so as I understood it from this young Romanian researcher, is that she said, because I think the frustration for me is, why do we keep talking about governments and parties? Because it's absolute nonsense, because they are absolute, it doesn't matter who you vote for in the end, then these people are not in control. So at the top, you've got what she calls the papal bloodlines, and we're going to mention some names in a minute. Underneath that, you've got their agents. Then you've got the bankers, and they're the names that we know. And then you've got the governments. So when you think about that pyramid, the governments are way down the line. So, but most people, most Joe public thinks that it's the governments that are making all these decisions and making all these laws, and it's not. So I just wanted to kind of set the record straight there, really. And I also, at some point, I guess I'd like to go into this idea of Satanism. Like, what does that mean when we say that? What do we mean when we talk about satanic rites and satanic practices? What does that mean? I think that's worth exploring. So yeah. So what do you think so far, Matt, having listened to that?
Yeah, well, elaborate on the satanic part, because
You want me to elaborate on that now?
yeah. Bring us
Yeah.
up to speed with your understanding of that.
Yeah. So okay, so just to paint a picture, I come from the kind of New Age world, and I've also been involved in the occult world, and people, from my point of view, often get Satanism confused with that, and I know that the culture, perhaps there in some of your states in America, would view anything sort of psychic or anything of that occult just means hidden, and I think they would view anything of that nature as being in league with the devil, and no disrespect to anybody's religion, but I think we have to be let's not be hyperbolic about things. So as I understand it, I think there's 2 things that are really important. So on the one hand, Satanism is a complete inversion of the word of God, of Christianity. It's a complete opposite of that. But there's also another line of Satanism, as I understand it, which is, and I think we've spoken about this before, which is just the over relating to everything material. And so those people, as we spoke about when we were talking about Elon Musk, those people that want to upload their consciousness to the cloud, or want to search for the elixir of everlasting life, I think in a way that they're Satanists, because they think that this life, this body, this plane is all that there is. And I guess a third aspect is, like when it comes to the Vatican, what secret knowledge do they have? What secret occult knowledge do they have? What secret magical knowledge do they have? do they know, for instance, we all know we don't use all the power of our minds, of our brains. So rather than sort of making things kind of magical, do they know a lot more about our power as human beings that we don't know, that these aspects of ourselves that we can tap into? Do they know a lot more about that? And indeed, are they able to do magic and rituals to change events and to increase their power? And one of the things Laura was talking about was, rather than thinking of them as having a lot of money, their money is in land, because over centuries having land is actually worth more to you than having cash necessarily. But also they invest in wineries, like they have huge amounts of wine stores, and they mix the adrenochrome, which we spoke about before, and Amy will know all about that. They mix that with their wine, and that is a big thing. That's a big currency, this adrenochrome. And to me, there's nothing more satanic than that. So that's my, I guess, 3 different understandings of what I think is satanic. What do you think, Amy? What's your take?
Well, I think that you're spot on, but I think also, it would be my opinion, that because of the type of control, mind control, and in today's world we call it MK Ultra. I can't remember the reference that was used back then, but again, it's all about fear. And when they're able to break somebody of their spirit and control them, whether it be through a word or a sound or this or that, to do things that they wouldn't normally do, that's another form of the ritual of the Satanism. And I'm sure that you've seen some of the parties, the pictures of the parties that they have and that kind of thing. And you mentioned the churches, and a lot of these churches, before they were actually a church for the people, they were more of a ritual type practice place for these bloodlines. And a lot of them, you'll see, they've got gargoyles, they've got, strange satanic weird things out in front, their statues, different types of pictures depicted on the walls inside the temples also. And again, these people back in the day, their time frame, they would say Monday through Friday it would be this type of a meeting, and then maybe one night a week they would have a different kind of a ritual. Then on Sunday, now you've got a priest or pastor or whatever that speaks, and it could be very well the same person that runs all these different events based on what these families want to have done and who's involved in what at what level. It's a different mindset for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the guy I was speaking about, Fritz Springmeier, in his
He's
book,
fantastic.
he was talking about actually Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was saying it doesn't matter if you look at religions like that. I don't really want to call it religion because I think it's more like a cult like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the Mormons. And he said it doesn't matter if you look at that or if you look at how things are now. It's the same set of tools that they use. And you're absolutely right, Amy. They frighten everybody, divide and conquer. So it doesn't matter if that could be in an organization, or that could be in a religion, and it doesn't really matter. That is the set of tools that seems to work. It's like the blueprint that they use over and over again.
Yeah, and it's generational, because what they've done is they've taken the mindset. To me, it's the mindset of these families, because of their beliefs that they are God, and they continue to pass that belief down generation to generation, and they refer to us as cattle, and they use Christianity, in the churches to control about 80% of the people. Because I don't want to say 100%, because 100% of the people don't go to church. But when you start looking at where these different temples and churches, and from the Vatican to some of the higher churches, they're all on ley lines. When you start looking at the map, they're on ley lines, which is, people don't really understand that. And those are Druids ley lines. It's kind of a scary thought when you think about that. And the Draconians, it's just if you look at even at the Pope's crown, it's kind of I want to say a paganistic shape, and where's Christian there,
Well, you saying about that, can't remember where I heard it. They were talking about the coronation of our recent king, so-called. Because this all links back. So the centers of power are the City of London, the Vatican, and Washington DC, according to this woman.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And if you look at the rituals, I didn't watch it, but if you look at the coronation of the king, there's so much ancient symbolism in that. And there's one part where he has to go behind a screen because he's apparently stripped naked and covered with goose fat. And of course, you're not allowed to see that bit. So it's so archaic, and it's like some big ritual, and it's there in plain sight. And when Queen Elizabeth, the monarch before him, had her coronation, it was televised, but it was cut, so that a lot of the ritual was cut out of that. And I think that was maybe misguided, that they filmed the whole lot of his coronation, because you can just see it there. And you're right, we say we've got a British royal family. It's absolute load of nonsense. I mean, first of all, they're very German, and after the World War I, they changed the name from Saxe-Coburg to Windsor because of the bad feeling against the Germans. But the fact is, all the European monarchs are interbred. All those families have interbred over the centuries. So to say that's the Spanish royalty and that's the British royalty, etc., it's rubbish.
It is. They're all related.
Yeah.
And they are not royal. They're just not. They think that they are. They've made everybody believe that they are, because their blood is better than our blood, but their blood's no different. It's just that their ancestors had money and control, and a lot of it, the land that they purchased, they might have had whatever they had for a period of time, money-wise, and bought so much land. Well, once they started getting more and more and more, now they became a little bit more powerful. How did they get more land? They took it militarily.
Yes. Yeah.
By war, because they wanted wars. So they actually took the land from the people.
But I thought to myself, from a broader view, in a way, they're all, if they desire to remain hidden, however lovely their castles and palaces are, and however much land they have, living in a prison, aren't you? Not living in the world. Not living in the world that you and I are. I mean, I'm sure they can get in their private jet and travel to any part of the world that they choose, but they're going to certain places in the world, aren't they? They're not just wandering along the street like you and I do, saying hello to each other, etc. It seems to me it's a prison. Yeah.
Yeah. And why is it that Queen Elizabeth is the only one that didn't have to have a passport?
Yeah. Don't they have a weird, it's something like they have a blue passport, don't they? And that means you're exempt. I can't remember that you're politically, I can't remember there's a phrase for it.
She never had to have a passport. She's the only one. She made everybody else get passports, but she never had one. Never.
There was
And
another.
over 1 million
Travels
flight
on her
miles.
own reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I said she travels on her own reconnaissance. You know, I don't need a passport because everybody in the world knows who I am.
Yeah.
So let me
But she
shift.
put it into law, Matt.
Oh,
She
did
put it
she?
into law. Yeah.
Okay, so let me
Crazy.
shift gears here a little bit because you guys really made a nice explanation and depiction of the way this thing is unfolding on this planet. Goes back centuries. So my question to the two of you is, what's the purpose of the charade in their mind? Okay, and I understand, listen, we want to control the planet, but when you're on the dark side, my understanding of the spiritual world is on one side there's love, the opposite side is not hate, it's fear. It's fear. And so the fact that these are human beings that have their own volition, and you don't need to have birthright or privilege or any of that to feel what God is, to understand through your own volition that there's more to this than me. You know, when that little fat guy that was born into the leadership of North Korea,
Mm.
okay, talk about birthright. You know, he went from one, I mean, think of the demonic minds and the atrocity these people do. I mean, they can watch women and children crying as their father's being taken off to the gulag by simply saying the wrong thing. So it's indescribable evil. But that fat little potbelly dude, he sits down and sees the sunrise. How can he not witness the love and all that? So I guess my question to you is, why the charade, the continued charade? Now, I understand most people who are born into this are coerced, you know, or something. Otherwise, there's going to be kind of like the two royals that headed for California and broke out of the prison. You know, there would be more of that, unless all of a sudden, if they opt to do that, we never hear from them again, and they unfortunately committed suicide. So my question to you is, why the continued charade? Why a loving creator would permit such atrocities? Okay, and why these people, if all human beings are from the light, and that's still the jury's out, there might be human beings, conscious souls that emitted from the darkness. And there's just no reasoning with these people. Okay, they're not going to see the light, so to speak. So, yeah. So why is it that just simple common sense doesn't correct the problem itself?
I think there's a number of options. And of course, we don't know. It's just conjecture. But there does seem to be that they're fearful of us. Like Amy said, you know, they're fearful of us. And because there's more of us than there
Can I
are of
stop
them.
you right there?
Yeah.
Fearful of us in terms of our retribution?
No,
Of the
because there's
consequences
more.
of us?
Because I think because they treat us like another species, and so there's an inherent fearfulness, isn't there, when you meet another species, because you don't, you know, there just is, you know, difference is we tend to view suspiciously for all sorts of reasons. So I think there's that, but I think also ultimately we have more power, but we don't know it, don't we? Because there's far more of us than there are of them. So if we want to storm their castle and take their land away, then we can do that. So I think there's that. But I think, you know, what secrets do they know? What power do they have? What ancient knowledge do they have? One of the things that Laura Marion says is that they want to recreate Atlantis, and, you know, exchange the word Atlantis for like a superhuman race. They want to recreate that. But for instance, the Orsini family, they're a bit more visible. Like apparently Domenico Orsini, he gives open interviews. It's said that he created, or his family created, the Jesuits. But they're openly sticking to this 2030 agenda, and their ultimate goal is that they want to reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. And the idea is that they want most of those to be of Asian origin, because traditionally Asian origin people tend to be more subservient by nature. That's how they've been groomed over centuries than us in the West. Because you're going to need a certain amount of us to make things and cook for them and do all of that stuff. But I guess I'll just finish off by saying that's something I don't understand, because once you've stockpiled all of this wealth, and we're talking trillions that we can't even imagine what it's like to have that much money. And then they start fighting inside with each other. And it's rumored that the Massimo family are the top of the pyramid. And as Amy said, all the way down, they're in league with secret societies, with the mafia. But that's something I just can't understand. It's like, once you've got trillions in the bank, why do you need more money? I have no idea. But how can we get into their mindset? We don't know what that life is like.
It's unfathomable.
I don't want to be in their mindset. It's a scary place, I think.
Why do you think they're fearful of us? Do you think they're fearful of us?
I do think that they're fearful of us, because we're finding out, and we're the light, we're the exposure, we're the ones that are bringing the reality of what they are and who they are to the public. And when you think about, and I'm just going to go with the United States here because I can't do the numbers over there, but when you think about back, say when Columbus sailed across, whatever, more than, my understanding is there's more than 60% of Americans are descendants from royalty. It's 650, we're going to go with, immigrants came here, right? Now, out of the 650 colonists that were here, there's, with traceable ancestry, 387 of them were left. They were descendants. So now when we're talking about these royals and the inbreeding, let's go back to that for just a second, because their blood is so special. They can't be with a commoner. They can't be with Matt. They can't be with you. They can't be with me. But how many of their staff did they impregnate? How many wives did they impregnate? With what do we call, what is it called? The bastard children?
Yeah.
The hidden children, hide them. Nobody can know about that. So there's a lot of that, but the inbreeding part is what I find to be interesting, because I don't even think a lot of people realize that Queen Elizabeth and Philip were third cousins.
Yeah.
How close is that?
Yeah.
And
you need fresh blood every now and again, don't you? Because of the gene pool.
Right. And see, most people don't even realize, if they start going into their ancestry, their genealogy, start looking back, and they really take a deep look at the surnames, and how many times they've changed.
Yes.
Where does that put you? Where does that put them? But the inbreeding part is the part that I find to be interesting, because I think, and this is again my opinion, and I'm going to express it loud and proud, when they started having children that had deformities and that were perfect to what their standard is, I think that's when they started doing these rituals. And I think that they started using some of the children from out of wedlock as rituals also.
Yeah.
Or they used those children as their birth children because they were perfect, but nobody knew the bloodline was different because they still had something in there. And then with all the programming through the rituals and the way that they brought them up, and the different things, they believed that they were better than everybody else, and that this is what had to go on, and so they continued. So, but how do you get rid of bodies? Well, Buckingham Palace had quite the graveyard in it, didn't it?
Yeah.
How many bodies were there thousands. They found thousands of all sizes too. A lot of babies, a lot of young children. So
So when you talk
kinda-
about this, I'm sorry, Amy, this incest, because I did a podcast a while back regarding the Hamas-Israeli war. And truth be told, and this is pretty common wisdom, but we're all descendants of Abraham. You know, if we're going to believe the scripture in the Bible, like, you know, Jesus and the Christians and the Jews and, you know, Islam, we're all kind of the same bloodline, you know, so it's
yeah,
really brothers fighting brothers over there for the most part. And so the bloodline we're talking about, again, what as you get close, you know, as you go down the tree from Abraham, now if you're talking second or third cousins, those types of things, is probably where the problem arises, right? Like you said, that's simple DNA. If you match, you know, if you match the same components, it's going to exacerbate it. And so, I forgot my train of thought. Go ahead.
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Oh, I know what it was. The when you come through that bloodline, and again, the incestuous stuff is a different story. But again, when that child is born into that royalty, okay, again, it's going to be indoctrinated with its own paradigm, and so it simply does not understand the outside world.
Yeah, and
That's
and
right.
and you can leave that, you know, you can abdicate, but it's really hard, isn't it? And like when people have slagged off the royal family, I've thought to myself, well, for the soul, just thinking in a spiritual way, for the soul, that soul, well, maybe it did make a choice to be born into the royal family, but that human being at some point, you know, maybe when it's 5 or whatever, wakes up and suddenly realizes who it is and the family that it's living in. What choice does it have? You know,
Right.
what choice do any of these people have to leave that if they don't agree with that? You know, so you're indoctrinated on the one hand, but secondly, how do you leave it?
Right. You can't leave
I don't
without
think it's easy.
repercussion.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy to leave it.
No, at all. And
You know,
there's
because I
another.
mean, you were talking about Fritz, and you know, he was talking because I think he's worked with a lot of people trying to get them out of the Illuminati, and how difficult it's been for not only him but them in trying to help them get out of it too. So it's a lot.
There's
And
another
he
guy.
said, why bother? You know, you can
Um,
try to escape, but again, is it any better on the outside? I mean, you're going to be ostracized.
Well, you're not
Um,
going to be able to escape it because it's such a vast coverage of people. You know, so you're never going to be able to escape it. And you know, I mean, some of them would probably be better off if they just didn't participate in some of it and they just tried to live their own lives. But you know, again, they're going to be ostracized and and controlled. And when you start talking about some of the families, I mean, it's not just the Rothschilds. I mean, you look at, you know, Reynolds Krupp, you look at Bill Clinton, you look at the George Bush family. You know, I mean, George Bush, they started Skull and Bones. But I mean, you've got such a vast number. I mean, Obama, Clinton, and Bush's, they're all second and third cousins.
Yeah.
Most people don't even realize that. I mean, basically, I think 12, is it 12 or 13? I can't remember exactly. But of our presidents have all been related. They've all been put into place. And does anybody look at that? No, because they're all from different areas. You got Georgia, you got, you know, you got the Carolinas, you got Texas, you got, you know, oh, Boo Boo, who was from Kenya, which wasn't even anything from here, but he was put into place. Boo Boo would be Obama. But I mean, when are people going to wake up to these factors, you know, and start actually looking at it? I mean, I'm happy to help them look, but I want other people to do some research too to figure it out and where it's all coming from and how bad it is.
You just made a good point there. When will people wake up? That's a nice segue into what's happening with the royal family today in terms of
I love that.
modifying the images and whether or not the king is dead. Lucinda, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Is that
there's room.
inching us toward revelation here? I mean, to where we're gonna, or are we no further ahead than we were?
Well, for starters, we know that Charles is a WEF baby. He's a globalist. And he was the first one to start talking about climate and things like that way back in the 70s and 80s. But there are rumors that Charles isn't Charles anymore. I don't know about that. There's a lot made of, he's got a lot of edema. He's got swollen fat fingers that look like sausages. And there's a lot made about that for some reason. I don't know. But with regards to Kate, who is William's wife, so the daughter-in-law of Charles, she hasn't been seen since Christmas Day in public. And the word that the palace gave was that she was having some abdominal surgery and she wouldn't be present again and wouldn't be seen in public until Easter, which is coming up soon, obviously. And so there was a lot of discussion about what possible surgery could she be having that would take her out of action for so long. And then on Mother's Day, this photo appears of her sitting in a chair with her children around her, and it was shown that her face was a direct take from a Vogue picture, I think, and there were all these details of the picture, why it was a fake. And then apparently she put out a statement saying, oh, like a lot of other people, I edit my pictures, but it was beyond editing. It was completely ridiculous. You could see that something just wasn't right about the proportions. And then the next thing, on a show called TNZ, I think, or TNZ, as you would say,
TMZ,
it wasn't it wasn't broadcast in this country. There was a grainy picture of her sitting in the car with her mum, and her face looked completely different. They were saying, well, maybe that's her sister, but it wasn't convincing that it was her. And then there's been yet more conjecture. And the latest photo is somebody supposedly took a picture of her and Prince William shopping in the countryside. But again, it's very vague, it's grainy, it doesn't look like her.
Not
But
conclusive.
if you take all of the conspiracy out of it, if the palace just wanted to allay all the gossip, all she'd have to do is a piece to camera, even just a headshot. Doesn't matter what her body's like, doesn't matter if she don't feel too good, just do a piece to camera, just bear with me, I'm coming back in Easter, whatever she would say, job done. I mean, even now we couldn't trust that, could we? Of course, because of AI stuff. But why not do a piece to camera and then be done with it? So of course, everybody's I will use the term, in the conspiracy world, everyone's gone mad. One theory is she's not playing the game. One theory is that she's already dead. Who knows? But it is whatever you think about it, it's very, very strange. But I wonder if they're grooming William to be the first global monarch. I don't know. But or is it just another one of these operations that keep us busy over here worrying about that and talking about that whilst something else dastardly gets slipped by us when we're not looking? I don't know. What do you think, Amy? What's your take on it all?
It's what we call false flag. So they have your attention diverted over here when they're doing this.
Doing something over there, yeah.
They've been gone for a long time. They've been gone for a very long time. Just like Elizabeth. I mean, when they finally televised her funeral, I was like, wow, that took a couple years. And same with Charles. I was like, God, they've all been gone for so long. But the undertaking of stripping the castle and doing all the things that they had to do, to get all the evidence of everything that they were involved in and whatnot was huge. I mean, they took literally every board out of the place. But as far as Kate, I mean, I really don't pay much attention to them. I did see the pictures you're talking about, and William's hands. I don't know what was up with that, but it was like, I'm not really. That's why I was doing this, because I wasn't quite sure what was happening with his hands. Different, but yeah, they've all been gone for a long time, and that's the thing that I think gives me comfort, is because, I told you before that I've got a friend that works over there, and he does what he does. I can't really I won't go into what he does because I don't want to put him at risk in any way. But he told me a long time ago, about them being gone. So it's time, and I don't believe that they wanted things to come out at once, because there again, it would create a huge uproar, right? People would lose their minds if they were like, oh, well, this one's been arrested, that one's been arrested, they executed this one, they did that, this one, da 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 da. And the list went on. They couldn't do it that way, because it would just create such a shitstorm of nuts. And the ones that they're still after, they wouldn't be able to get. So you do things on a small level. And I mean, you've heard, our commander-in-chief say, we're not going to give you dates. We're not going to tell you our secrets. We're just going to do this, and when we're done, then you'll know. And so I look at a lot of the things that have been done, they're already done. So it's time for us to be able to kind of sit back and celebrate while everybody else is going nuts. But I still say, that's why we're here, is we're here to let people know it's okay. We've been through this. We understand. We know. You're finding out the information right now. We've been there. It affected us too, but we went down the rabbit hole even further. And, this is where we are. This is where the PSYOPs have taken us, where the military has globally put things into place and made things better, gotten rid of these people, that they can't control us anymore. They're not a thing for us to fear any longer. They got to finish up with the media, of course, which my understanding is some of them are starting to tell the truth, but I don't know, because I refuse to turn on Main Street media. Can't do it.
They're still robots.
Yeah, I kind of figured that they probably were, yet, just because of the things I see online.
Did you see they did a montage of them using the word bloodbath, because Trump did?
Oh yeah,
Just
and they do that all the time.
Yeah.
And every one of them, that's you've heard me say Mockingbird Theater, because they're all repeating. It's a bunch of mockingbirds, and that's exactly what they do. And because they're not done. They're not done. We still have a ways to go.
Yeah, and they're obviously roped in. I mean, these people that are, the ones that are the most compelling and really buy into it, they know they're a pawn in the deceit, and then the other outside reporters that are just trying to make a name for themselves, they know I got to say what I'm told to say, or I won't have this position.
Yeah, exactly. They're under contract. We're still waiting to see some arrests happen. When is Podesta going to get arrested? I think he's going to be one of the first that we're going to see, maybe. We still have the Clintons to deal with. We're not done yet. We still got a few months. But I think that over the course of the next few months, there's going to be a plethora of information that's going to come out and really blow the minds of people. And people are going to start looking more and seeing that the information that we've shared isn't new.
Right. You've been saying all. Well, that's optimistic. I'm hoping the dominoes start falling a little quicker here, because I'm getting sick of waiting for these types of events to unfold. Hey, see if you buy into this logic, Lucinda. Once I heard this story about the Trump, about the king being already dead, or what be it, or Charles, I instantly Googled it. And when you do that, there was every single result was like fact checkers or just this Armageddon of people denying it's true. And like you said earlier, Lucinda, that they can put it to rest by simply presenting the evidence, and they choose not to. But then they put their army apparatus to go out there and be in denial. And it just strikes me as that's conclusive proof. The fact that Google has to come to their defense rather than just presenting the evidence is probably the most substantial proof I have, thinking this is all real.
Yeah.
It's just the extent to which they will go to deny and cover it up.
Yeah, and I think, as an aside, I think that because there's been all this talk about it, about Kate. And I think what that suggests is that people are becoming increasingly suspicious. They're no longer going, oh, well, you know, the BBC says that. And, you know, people are beginning to question. And that is a good thing. We need people to begin to question. I guess where I'm not optimistic like Amy is because I think, you know, right at the top of that pyramid, it doesn't matter if you get rid of all these ones down here. They're just the foot soldiers. And I guess that's the message I want to give people today is whether we can do anything about it or not. It's the top of the pyramid that really needs to change. It's no good just these foot soldiers, you know, whether, you know, Trump, whoever. I guess, you know, to kind of contradict myself, I also think about the way a pyramid system works. And the further down it gets, the more diluted it is, and the more opportunity there is for error, isn't there? You know, it's like the CEO sitting at the top of his company saying, right, I want it run this way. And then the managers go off and so on and so forth. And then right down at the bottom, the minions aren't necessarily playing the game, or they're making mistakes or whatever. So I do, that kind of thing does encourage me. And I also think, as you were saying, really, Matt, are all the people at the top of the pyramid, are they all dark? Surely there's got to be some beings of light up there. I don't know. Surely. Where are the white hats?
They're not in that triangle. That's the 13. You know, and when you think about them and their symbolism, I mean, when you go on down the list, how many Freemasons do you know?
Well, my granddad was a Freemason.
Okay. And what did they believe?
In what sense?
Well, a lot of the Freemasons were controlled by these 13 families.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I
Yeah.
think, again, the ones, like I'm thinking about my son-in-law, my stepson-in-law, and he's joined the Masons, and he doesn't know anything about this stuff.
Right, that's exactly it.
Right,
You
but
know,
see,
he's just doing it with a good heart. He's not a bad
Right,
person.
but in joining the Masons, they need to have a lodge system, right?
Yes.
Now, if you or I or Matt, we wanted to join the Masons, we'd start out down here, right?
Well, you and I
Then
wouldn't
we'd
be
go-
able to.
Well, yeah, I know, because we're women. But so Matt would be down here, and then he'd go up one, then he'd go up two. They're only allowed to go up so many levels
Yeah.
unless you're in that bloodline and you're
Yeah,
chosen.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you're never going to know what's going on up here, you know, because you're down here. You're doing, like you call them, the foot soldiers, doing the work, doing everything.
Right,
You know,
Lucinda made a good point. I've got a couple of friends that are in the Masons too, and yeah, they're not necessarily oblivious to the history of the Masons, but it's certainly not why they joined. They believe it's
No.
all about community and camaraderie and all those things, and believe it's a
Right.
noble cause with you know, basically, you know, because so on a local level, yeah, there's probably a lot of really, really good soldiers, and they feel like they're doing it for good. But unfortunately, like the Catholic Church or what be it, if you dig too deep into the history of it, it's probably not something you want to do, you know, join.
Well,
No, we've all thought we've been good at helping with charities and different things, and look where that got us.
well, yeah.
You know?
So just to make a point for our audience, you know, this power controls every aspect of politics, religion, commerce, industry, banking, insurance. You mentioned insurance the other week, Matt. Mining, the drug trade, and the petrochemical industry. And
Every
that
industry
includes big pharma. So absolutely everything that you can think of, secret societies, and they even have tentacles into the Muslim world. So this whole idea at the moment of Christianity against Islam, etc., it's all nonsense, utter nonsense.
Absolutely.
At the head, they're beyond that.
I got a question. Matt, how do you think Aristotle Onassis, you know who Onassis is?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think he went from being a dishwasher in South America to where he got to today?
I couldn't even venture to guess. Enlighten me.
This whole thing right here.
And that's why Jackie married him?
Their bloodlines were basically put together. So that's kind of where that came from. Because it's all Illuminati. You know, it has so but I mean, Lucinda, you're absolutely right. They control literally everything down the line, including fast food restaurants. They control everything, you know, and until people start figuring it out, they get their tentacles, you know, start breaking off their tentacles, you know, they're not going to be able to break free. But being that that is the mindset at this point, and now things are changing, people are starting to see the symbols. People are starting to realize what's being put in their food and who's doing it. You know, they're finally figuring it out, because of people like us. I refer to myself as a black sheep. I think, Matt, you are too. Lucinda, I think you're on the black sheep family. Because we're outside of the box. We're not in it going, oh, it's like this, we have to follow the leader. We're out here going, are you shitting me? Wait a minute. No, that doesn't even sound right. How is it that you said this and now you're saying that? I can understand sometimes you got to correct something that you say along the way, but a 100% flipping contradiction? No, your conviction is still going to be somewhere to what you originally said. You may have to do a correction, but we're out here doing what we do to at least get people aware of what's taken place and how we've gotten to where we are today, and who some of the players are, even though we're not listing all of them right now, because that would take days for us to be online together, and I don't know how many followers would stay with us that long.
Well,
and
you talking about correcting what we say, Amy, I realized when I was looking back at last week's episode on Elon Musk, I realized I'd said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then it clicked and I thought, yes, I do, because you were talking about the hormone blockers that kids were getting, and that he was in favor of stopping that. And absolutely, of course, I know about that. And the Tavistock here in the UK, in London, they were really the people that you referred young people with gender issues to. And the Tavistock clinic has been disbanded, or that aspect of it has been disbanded, which seems like a really good thing. But unfortunately, there's going to be a load of private clinics springing up all over the country. But yes, you're absolutely right. There has been a turn in the movement, that children should absolutely not be given hormone blockers and should absolutely not have surgery until they're mature adults. So
and even,
so I did.
You know, even when they are mature adults, what people don't understand, and I'm going to say this because I've got a friend that's going through this right now with his daughter. She's an adult, young adult. She decided she wanted to go through the change. All right. So, of course, you know, not being extremely thrilled about that and feeling the way that their family does, but also still being supportive, because you love your children no matter what. But these hormones that she was taking are not something women can take. Men can't take the female hormones and what they're giving them. You know, it starts to make them go nuts. You know, and I think I mentioned maybe at one point, I think that when we were talking about the transgenders, and when you started looking at the shootings that took place, that most of them were going through the process, you know, and they're on these medications, going through the process of doing the change, you know, and it's just making them go cuckoo.
As much as, you know, as a therapist, I stopped doing that work a few years back, because for something, a really simple reason, that I'd have a kid sat opposite me who was obviously a guy wanting to be known as a girl. And I would have to keep thinking about my language and watch what I said and watch my statements. And and all my attention was with me to not offend or not make a mistake. And instead of being with the person over there that's sitting with me, and I thought, whatever my personal thoughts about this, that is not therapeutic, because if I'm having to think about me, then I'm not thinking about you. And the whole premise of my job is that I'm thinking about you. And I've moved on from that. And the whole thing is a lie. You can mutilate your body, you can take a load of hormones, you can dress how you want, but there is no way that you and I, Amy, are ever going to know what it is like to be Matt and have the experience of being a male and everything that goes with that. And he is never going to be able to experience what it is to be a woman at all. And this idea that your gender is culturally created, I think is utter rubbish. And we are lying to our young people. And I feel really, really strongly about that. But I do think the tide is turning with that whole ideology.
Yeah, I do too. And the thing is they had to blow it up as a distraction because people were uncovering what was taking place.
Well, I think it's just another arm of, I think it's another arm, actually, Amy, of keeping us separate. It's keeping us not relating, not being intimate.
Yeah.
I think it's just another arm of that. Stop breeding. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. It is about keeping us all separate and in fighting.
Yeah.
If they can't do it this way, they're going to do it this way. And I mean, I don't want to consider it or call it to be entertainment, because I find it interesting how many people follow this stuff, and they fall for it and fall into it. It's like, oh my God, where are you? In reality, they're just.
Well, and it's a confusing world. Yeah, it's a confusing world out there, and depending on what your indoctrination is, that's the way you see the planet.
Yeah, and you're who you associate with,
Yeah.
And that's my friend. His daughter. I mean, God, wish I could describe her, but I mean, she was the most incredibly beautiful, beautiful girl. And she decided that she liked women versus men. Don't know why, because her father is an amazing, amazing person, loves kids, but she loved girls, wanted to be with girls. Okay, fine. So then she gets this one, and this one's referring to her as my friend's son, and he's like, no, it's my daughter. But she helped convince her. And when they get to they have such a low self-esteem and such a low vibration within, that it's easier for them to be found and latched onto by these groups who further do more damage.
Well, I think anybody has the right to live as they want, to wear the clothes they want, to have the persona they want, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. I haven't got a problem with that. If you're a female and you want to live as male and you want to change your name to Steve, I haven't got a problem with that. But the lie is that you can, by mutilating your body or taking this medication, that you can experience what it is to be of the opposite sex, and you cannot. You cannot. And that is a lie. And that's it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well,
I think we went off at a tangent. What's that got to do with bloodlines?
well, yeah. No, well, you don't know. These things twine together one way or another.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so this has been good. Let's do some parting thoughts. Who wants to start?
Whoever wants to.
You go for it, Amy. I've spoken a lot today. You go for it.
And I think it's fantastic. I absolutely do. Again, I'm going to refer to us as the black sheep, because we're the ones that we push the boundaries of everything that people think. And we might get pushed back, but you know what? Eventually they're going to see that we're true to our convictions. And we view the world a bit differently because we have the ability to question and seek. We have the imagination, to create, and we all want to create a better place. You know, we want social equality. We want whatever it may be unconventional, but thinking that people can do what they want to do. They just have to put their minds to it, because most of them have got such a blockage that we need to open them up. And that's what we're here for, to make a difference and to help them get through all the crazy stuff that's coming at them.
Yep.
So hopefully we can do some of that and bring some peace.
Love it.
I guess that's kind of
Lucinda.
it.
I guess for me, it's always a double-edged sword, because, you know, my partner says, if it distresses you, why do you do this? And I'm just compelled to. I'm compelled because I'm a truth seeker, as are you two. But I think this week I found it hard. In the early part of the week, I've been really quite down. And then I thought, okay, you know, I look at my partner, I look at my children, I look at my friends, my new friends such as you, and I think, you know, that's what's happening in your daily life. It's those relationships that are precious to you. It's that connectedness you have with those that you love, those that you regard. And, you know, we just have to struggle on with our lives, don't we? And we have to put out good thoughts, and we have to remember what it feels like to love each other, and we have to praise our gods, you know, and put some good positive energy out there. Otherwise, you know, and whether the army is encroaching upon us metaphorically or not, otherwise they've already won, haven't they? Because if we're living in that state of fear, yes, we're really easily manipulated, but our lives are being stolen from us. And whatever happens, you know, I can leave this now and go and hug my partner or my kids. And I think that's what got me through, really. But it has been quite dark at times. I don't think you can look at all this stuff and not get a bit bogged down in it sometimes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But just remember, be compassionate to yourself first.
Yes.
You gotta have that, you know, before you can put it out. You've got to have it here.
Yeah.
So keep that there and reach out.
Yep.
You know where
It's
to
all
get
about the
both Matt and I.
relationships. Yep. And that's a perfect ending, because again, that I think what Lucinda just said reflects our new direction to perfection. And that's, listen, we want to talk about corruption theory because it's real. It affects people's lives. We want those dominoes to start falling. So we want to be part of the narrative and hope people listen and agree, and let's, you know, unite in that regard. But what stands above that all is the word optimism.
Yes,
And
always.
absolutely, this is no fun if we're going to do it from in the darkness. And that optimism comes from absolutely your closest. That's what matters most. And I think God would testify to that says, Lucinda, what matters are those 5 people that you're hugging day in and day out. The rest of the world can kiss your ass, you know? Yeah. And that's the way we're going to do it, right? That's it. We know we whittle it down to our spiritual self. It starts with that. Then it's our closest loved ones. That's as far as you go. Now, a percentage of our lives on this planet are going to be to help try to get those dominoes to start falling. Absolutely. And you two are great at it. All right. Are we good to go?
We're a good trio.
Yes.
We are.
Do you two have any idea how much I love you?
Well, we love you.
Well, I
yes,
so
we
look
do.
forward
We
to
love
this.
you.
This is a genuine love. Genuine, right? I mean, come on. We're peas in a pod here. We're
more than, you know, there's that saying of you can't, what is it? Blood is thicker than water. But to me, I think that the family that you choose is the strongest. And I mean, Lucinda, you and I are just getting entwined. I've known Matt since we were 8, 9 years old.
I forget our first kid.
But, I mean, you create your family, you build
You
your
do.
family.
You do.
And we are definitely that. And it's only going to get stronger and better. So
Love
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, my beautiful friends, truly a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, my darling.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Amy. Bye.
Bye.